You are listening to Personalization Outbreak, a podcast about the collapse of traditional corporate standards in today's more personalized world. I'm Glenn Llopis. I'm a leadership strategist, author, contributor to Forbes, and founder of the Leadership in the Age of Personalization movement. On this show, I'm interviewing executives across multiple sectors to find out how the balance between standardization and personalization can exist. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our special Earning Conviction series, part of the Personalization Outbreak podcast. I'm Glenn Llopis. You're in for a treat. You see, today's guest has spent her whole career studying one thing. Now, listen carefully. Why capable, accomplished people quietly come undone. And her whole story starts somewhere a lot of us would recognize. It starts inside of a toxic office. See, 25 years ago, Dr. Rosie Ward was climbing, credentialed, capable, doing everything the system rewards, and slowly losing herself. The environment was cheering her performance and eroding her humanity at the same time. So she walked away from the path she was told to want, earned her PhD, trained under Brene Brown, and built Salvio Partners around a single question: what makes a leader break? And then what makes one unshakable? Now, her new book is Future Proofing Leadership. Go buy a copy now. We're also concerned about what's next. Rosie's done a great job explaining that to us, especially through the lens of leadership. And when we first spoke, she actually said something to me that stopped me, made me really think. She said that most leaders don't have a capability problem. They have an awareness problem. See, that's why she's here. She's talking about things that are relevant and needed. See, and that's the thing running them, isn't it? It's not a skill they're missing. I mean, people keep talking about skills. And look, I believe in upskilling. Don't get me wrong. But before you learn a new skill, you need to start looking from within. And that's the gap between who we actually are and who fear taught us we had to become. And that's what this whole series is about. So before we get started, please click the like button below, share it with your colleagues, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and social media at Glenn Llopis. Rosie, I know that you're on the edge of your seat, ready to get started. How are you doing? It's great to have you. Thank you.
Well, that was quite the introduction. I'm so excited. Like, this is going to be so much fun. So let's do this.
Well, good. Well, let's just get this thing warmed up. I mean, why do we keep training how to fix leaders from the outside? Another course, one more framework. But the thing that actually runs us was always underneath. And almost none of us were ever taught to look on the inside. Why is that?
Because we, as a species, like the easy button, right? We want that Staples easy. Here we go. We want quick fixes. We want stuff to happen yesterday. And we like things that are like tangible, that we can touch, see, and feel. And so it seems, quote unquote, easier to, hey, let's teach the skill sets and give you framework and conversation starters and all this stuff of like, how do you have a difficult conversation, how to set healthy boundaries, how to delegate, how to regulate your mindset and be more emotionally intelligent, which are the common areas where we found leaders want to grow. But guess what? All that stuff that is very tangible, it's short-lived at best, because doing the inner work is messy, it's uncomfortable, it's not a nice linear straight line, and it takes a little bit more time. But if you start to look in the long run, how much do we just kind of recycle the same old things and bring the same training back in because it didn't work. But I think our perception is it's going to take longer, it's messy, it's not clear, it's uncomfortable, and we tend to avoid discomfort at all costs as human beings. That's how we're wired. And so I just think that we've fallen into what is familiar, what is comfortable, what seems more tangible, rather than looking at what actually is going to be helpful, because we want that easy button.
Okay, so I'm going to create a real scenario that takes everything that you said into account. So work with me here and jump in at any time. So What does this look like? You're a leader, you're an employee, you're someone at work, and this strategy that they've been telling you that you have to work on has really weighed on you because you actually don't believe in it. In fact, you actually think it's the opposite of what we should actually be doing because see, the people who are telling you that you should do it are the leaders up top and you're the one touching the business every day. So what happens? You go into the first meeting, you hear about the strategy, everybody's on board and you're looking around the room and you're saying, "Why are people being so dishonest? I just had a discussion with XYZ the other day, and they agreed with me that this direction that we were anticipating our leader would propose is not the right one." So you have a few more sessions later, and then now it's time to finalize everything. You've prepared yourself the night before. You walk into the meeting. Everyone is there to discuss why they agree or disagree with the strategy. There's six people in the room who have to present. You're the last one. And everyone has said all these great things about it. And everything that you prepared for the night before, you didn't do. You played it safe. You went back to the familiar. And you're just kicking yourself on your way home, knowing that what you did was not in the best interest of the organization, the people in the room, and yourself. Why does that happen, Rosie? And why is it so common? And the reason I bring up this example is that is a measurement of one's conviction. And imagine that someone does that throughout their career. And it's not to say that they wouldn't do it sometimes, but they're not consistent. I mean, over time, doesn't that just keep setting us back, as they say, one step forward, in this case, 10 steps back? And then we wonder why we cling to what we're familiar with rather than reinvent ourselves based upon what the moment demands. Explain that to us.
Yeah. Well, I love that scenario because it does happen a lot. It is so common. And so if you take that example, and we can get into what we uncovered in our research with our inner operating system and faulty program. But as I listen to that, I think, well, sure. So I can have the best intentions of I want to speak up and I think this is in the best interest. But you know what? If I am quietly running, let's say, the faulty program we call the mime, which fears conflict and disharmony, and now I realize I'm the only person in the room. I don't want to be causing waves and then like, all this head trash. Or if I'm running a people pleaser program and I want people to like me, and now, oh my gosh, if I speak up and actually say what I really think, I am going against the group. I'm outcast. I'm kicked out. They may not let me back in here. They may label me a troublemaker. If I am running one of the cousin programs called the Dropout, where I fear looking stupid or sounding incompetent, and I'm the only one speaking up, they're going to think, well, wait, I'm going against the group and everybody else has more power. Or if I am running the fraud, which is like imposter syndrome or the counterfeit, and my brain is telling me like, who do you think you are, and you're not good enough and you shouldn't be in this room anyway, and now you speak up like WTF. So any one of these, it's our inner operating system that triggers this danger Will Robinson stress response that tells us don't go there. And we can have the best intentions. We can be highly motivated. And this is why working on the outer skills doesn't work. I can be completely motivated. Like, I care about my team. I care about the company. I care about this being successful. I think I want to get out of my comfort zone. I think that, you know what, I prepared. I can do this. I've looked in the mirror like Stuart Smalley from SNL and be like, you're good enough, you're smart enough, and people like you. Like, I've done all the things that I'm supposed to do to get my mindset ready. And I go in there and that moment happens and I go, oh, hell. And it's just like, just kidding. Maybe not today. Because the inner operating system is conditioned to protect us from what we perceive as threats. And our brains don't know the difference of a wild animal charging at us versus we might be judged a social threat. And in that moment, that takes over and that wins because we have not done the work to identify it and to upgrade this inner operating system that is no longer serving us. That's why.
Okay. So you've taken me to something that we discussed before we went live here. And I am going to talk to you about what faulty programs are, because I think this is very important. But What you just described, isn't it reflective in the following scenario? A 45-year-old vice president who wants to learn how to trust herself more because she's having decision paralysis and she needs to understand how she thinks so she can make better decisions. And a 15-year-old who's editing themselves down so that they can fit in at school and get more likes on social media. Because isn't this the same thing, just packaged differently?
It's 100% the same thing. It is a combination of that inner operating system telling us something isn't safe, something isn't whatever, fill in the blank. I call it our head trash. It's giving us some kind of narrative or story that we're believing in that moment about ourself, about our worthiness, about people. And so in the 45-year-old executive example, it is, you know what? I've been telling myself this story so long. I've been running on this operating system that I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't even know who my authentic self is. And then the thought of like having to advocate on behalf of that authentic self feels really scary. And it just feels like too much work, whatever. If I'm the 15-year-old, I also have that inner operating system because it's created in the first 10 to 15 years of our life. And I am now in this, I don't know who I authentically am because my world is defined by what other people think of me at that stage of life. So I also don't know how to act on behalf of my own authentic voice because it feels too scary and what are people going to think? So it is the same thing. It's the 15-year-old and the 45-year-old are having the exact same experience. It's their inner operating system that is not serving them well in that moment. And that's the work we have to be doing.
So what happens in the home when those two things are happening at the same time?
Oh boy, well, that's really fun. You know, to be interesting. I mean, I have a 15-year-old son. I'm a little bit older than 45, but we can pretend that he's
No,
still
I don't
45.
believe that. I don't believe it.
We can pretend. We don't gray till like in our 70s in my family. I'm not 70, but I'm like, there we go. But here's the thing is that it comes in all kinds of ways. So for example, if I'm that 45-year-old and I'm at home and or let's say I'm the person that didn't speak up in that meeting and I'm just like, oh, why didn't I do that? Well, now I'm in my own head and I got my own head trash. And now I'm worried about performing well and worried what's going to happen at work or whatever it might be. I'm now completely mentally distracted. How present am I with my family and my kid? Right? Am I, or am I constantly working and showing them, or am I even verbally saying the stuff that's in my head and they hear me beating myself up? Or why did I do that? Or they overhear me talking with my spouse, whatever. I mean, our kids are absorbent and take in like everything. So your 15-year-old now hears that. What do you think is being reinforced in their own mindset about, ooh, don't speak up because, oh God, this doesn't ever get better? I mean, so that inner operating system is formed in those early years of our life from our family of origin, but also our friend group and community. Like all of our experiences give us the rules of the road of what is safe, what isn't, when to speak up, when to be quiet, when you're going to be accepted, when you're going to be rejected. And so if we haven't done that work, then guess what? We inadvertently probably reinforce it
Hmm.
for our kids. That's just the reality of it. And we can't do anything about it. We can't put them in a bubble, but we can acknowledge it and stuff. But I think about that 45-year-old having their own stuff going on. I coach a lot of these leaders. It's like, how present are you at home? How's your well-being? How's your communication? How's your crabbiness? How are
Oh.
you helping? And then sometimes you will get people that are trying to like live vicariously through their kids. So maybe they didn't feel accepted in school and now they put pressure on their kids to get the likes or whatever because they feel like if their kid is somehow popular or this or that or the best at this, then somehow, I don't know, it makes up for them or something. I mean, you can get all kinds of weird stuff that happens. I mean, but anyway, so it's not helpful, period, if one person is running that and doesn't know and doesn't do the work. But you get a bunch of people together, and this is what happens in workplaces every day. You have a bunch of people on a team or in a workplace that are basically being hijacked by out of date inner operating systems. And we wonder why we have the challenges that we have.
Okay, take us there. Take us there about the outdated inner operating systems and where faulty programs come into play.
Yeah, so this is watering it down, but depends on the research you look at. But if you start to look at human development and you start to look at neuroscience and psychologists, there's this agreement that in the early years of our life, some research says 7, some says 15. So I use 10 because it's a nice middle number. But that in those early years of our life is like this imprint period. So we are basically downloading programming that's imprinting in our brains. It's creating this operating system that tells us the rules of the road, as I was saying. And that programming serves a really, really critical function because it helps us feel safe. It helps us feel in control. It helps us find love and belonging and acceptance, all of those core human needs that we have. So that programming serves a critical function. And here's the thing, you grow up in a dysfunctional household, there are certain things you need to do to be safe. But then the problem is that we don't, and you can have a happy household too, by the way, it doesn't matter. But, or we extrapolate and we saw a sibling get in trouble, or we saw this and we're like, whew, never going to happen to me. So I'm going to make darn sure that I never put myself in that position. So it's unavoidable because it's how we make sense of our experiences. As human beings, we create narratives and stories about what we're seeing. That's how we're designed. And so this programming that we download that starts to get imprinted in our brain starts to go into our unconscious and subconscious memory. And if you look at, again, the estimates from neuroscientists that we are on autopilot somewhere between 90 and 95% of the time. So that means that that programming that got downloaded is running quietly. It's just like the inner operating system of your computer. It's just like the inner operating system of your phone. It's running behind the scenes so that all the things that you see can function. So the secondary piece that makes this so important but also challenging is there's research that also shows that more than 70% of that programming that we download that is now running us most of the time is fundamentally flawed, negative, and self-sabotaging. So if you put all this together, it's so we are running around on an iOS or inner operating system that is predominantly head trash. It's like our 10-year-old self is in the driver's seat, and a lot of our reactions are not coming from our adult self, and we don't realize it. So when you think about this work, like, okay, Glenn, what would happen if you were trying to run Microsoft 365 on your computer and your computer was still running an operating system of Windows XP?
Yeah, I get it.
Or like
I
I have an iPhone. I want to say the latest iOS update was 20.6 or something. What if your iPhone was still running iOS of 8.2?
so I have a question here. This is very interesting. So outdated inner operating system. Got it. I'm an employee that works with this very large employer who now is subtly mandating AI. Now, I would say, is technically running in an evolving inner operating system because it only evolves based upon how you help it evolve. Or maybe not. Maybe it'll stay stuck within your own outdated inner operating system. So I don't know if it's just me, but the way I've translated what you said is it's someone who has an outdated inner operating system should not be engaging with AI. Why? Because if you're basically operating at zero relevance in your job, but your inner operating system has helped you survive that job because it's not asking a whole lot more than it did 5 years ago. But now it's about to change. And you're not ready for that. And now you're going to start working with AI to help you get there. How in the heck is that going to work?
Well, I love the way you talk about AI because here's the thing is that first of all, AI is programmed by people, and I'm just going to say primarily who don't understand mindset and don't understand it's behaviorally focused, right? It gives you really good tactics, and AI has great things to do. But I've actually done this example like in workshops live where I've taken screenshots. Okay, let's just say you are challenged with either a coworker or your boss, you're frustrated. What do? We go to AI. I'm having problems with such and such. Tell me how to handle it. And it starts spitting out a very AI sounding behavioral, do this, say these questions, grid. It doesn't address that I have a mindset that I actually am not even seeing this person as a human being. It doesn't address that I might be telling myself a faulty story about this person or situation. AI is really good at validating you and, oh, sounds like a terrible problem. Now, let's say I give a neutral, help me have a conversation better. It's still very generic. Now you add some emotion behind it. And I don't know how to emotionally regulate. My boss doesn't trust me. My boss is a micromanager, or my employees don't take feedback well. So now there's this emotional chargedness that goes into the AI prompt, and watch what it spits back out at you. Just test it out. It'll say things like, that sounds really frustrating, and it starts to validate those emotions. And right now I think, see, I'm accurate. Versus, no, my brain is telling me stories because it perceived a threat. And instead of pausing and I'm going to go check out that story, I've now just been validated. And guess what? It's going to tell me a bunch of things to do that if my inner operating system tells me it's not safe, I'm not going to follow those directions anyway. So AI cannot address mindset, or at least not yet. And I will say that where we use AI internally, it's getting a little bit better because it knows our work and it knows our faulty program, and it'll try to say some stuff. So it can say the right things, but guess what? I can read it. But if my inner operating system, my faulty programs tell me this isn't safe, I'm still not going to use those prompts. I'm still not going to use the suggestions that it gives me.
So does that set us back, is my point.
Hmm.
In a time where we need to, where our inner operating system needs to be modernized for the moment, is AI doing us any favors? And by the way, I'm not being negative about AI. I think we all have to learn it, but we need to do the inner work in order to benefit from it.
Yeah. Well, so let's say like AI is really good at, let's say, doing like projections and data analysis and some of that
Yes,
stuff,
yeah.
right? So
Mhm.
so let's say you've used it to take the part of your role that you had to crunch numbers and now it's doing all this analysis. But here's the thing, you still have to make sense of that analysis. And you have to be able to go, does this make sense and fit with our purpose? Does this make
Mhm.
sense and fit with our strategy? What is the people impact going to have? Is this ethical? Those are all uniquely human skills. And so
Mhm.
so you can do that part, but then you're sitting here and then you're thinking, well, I don't know. And you know what? I don't know how to think in a complex way because I haven't been challenged that way because my operating system hasn't asked me to do that. Now I'm questioning myself, well, if I say this, I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know. And now I start wondering if I'm sounding stupid. Like there can be a whole lot of things of, what do you now do with that information? And if you're not equipped from a mindset standpoint, from an awareness standpoint of how to use that information or that analysis in an effective way, it's going to be apparent pretty quickly. And so I think what AI is currently doing is it's revealing some of those gaps in leadership, in awareness, in communication skills, because it can spit out outputs, but then it's, what are you actually doing with this, and how do you bring people along, and all the things that go with it that start to become pretty clear.
Okay, leadership development. Why does so much of it fail to actually create the change that we need it to? Why?
Because I think it's going back to that easy button, it's not structured in a way that honors two things. One, how just adult development and truly how we evolve and how we learn and how we grow from the inside out, because a lot of it focuses on those outer skills. But I think number two, also taking into account that in today's environment where people are on cognitive overload, they're experiencing change fatigue. There's, to use Zach Mercurio's word, there's not an engagement crisis or a loneliness crisis. There's a mattering or an anti-mattering crisis, if you will.
Mhm.
It's not taking into account all of those things. It's just kind of doing the rinse repeat, what we've always done. And that's not how it works. I mean, like if you think about leadership development, one, it has to have three different pieces to it, which we can dig into, but just structurally, it it needs to be smaller pieces over time, application, where individual work to upgrade your inner operating system has to be done and get messy. That's the individual work. It needs to be done in parallel with what we call team-based courage building, because meaningful change happens in the context of relationships and having a support system and having a sense of mattering and having psychologically safe teams and all of that. They need to kind of go side by side. And you've got to have systems that support sustainability so that when we get stressed and our old patterns want to emerge, that we have like it's kind of a fail safe that like, nope, here's a reminder of how we do things here. Here's a thing to lean on. Because what happens so often in organizations is we send leaders off to leadership development classes, or we offer them, or we send them off to coaching, but then they come back and the modus operandi hasn't changed. And in many cases, those systems reinforce old behaviors, and it makes it really challenging. So either they start to fall back on old habits again, or what you have is leaders who get really frustrated because they evolve and grow. They start to see the disconnect that their organization doesn't. And those are your highest performing people that a lot of times leave and go find their happiness elsewhere because that disconnect starts to become blazingly apparent to them.
Okay, I want to say, I'm going to share a little something. I want you to react to it based upon what you just said. It's no longer about the business or the institution defining the individual. It's about the individual defining the institution in search of a shared mission. Where are we in that strata today based upon what you know?
We have a long way to go. But I think we're making some strides, because here's the thing is, you can look at all the data that people want to have a greater sense of purpose, a just cause. They want to be part of, regardless of generation, they want to be a part of that. But the old approach of, a select group of leaders going off with a consultant and pushing this stuff down doesn't work. Or what we hear a lot is, yeah, I get we have this purpose and I see these values, but like, I don't know where they came from because that's not a lived experience here. And I
Okay,
think, yeah,
so Rosie, really quick. So what you've said is, as much as we want to define the business, if it's going to take a while to get there, then what I'm taking from this is that our outdated interoperating system is really heading towards a path of obsolescence. That's what I'm gathering from you. Fair enough?
yeah, irrelevance, obsolete,
Okay.
yeah, 100%.
Okay. So with that, because you do a lot of work with leaders, they know this. They themselves, the person that hires the consultant and pushes things down that people may not agree with, they're part of that. In fact, let me share something that happened to me recently. I sat down with an executive, and again, I can't obviously get into who it's with, but you know. And we talked about these things. And you know what he told me? He said, Glenn, I've been faking it for the last 5 years. I go, what? Yeah, my company's completely disconnected. I figure, I don't remember when I was asking the kind of things that employees are asking of their leaders today. I just fake it. I said, how can you do that morally? It got uncomfortable. But with all that said, what is your conclusion of, maybe I'm just going to throw out a number, the top 5 things that really matter to a leader? Because you're talking about mattering earlier. So I want to bring it back because I know that's a hot topic. What matters to them?
No, I will say every leader I work with, they want to feel valued. And let's be honest, the further you go up in the organization, the less you hear it because you get all the complaints, you get all the whatever. It's just the expectation you perform, and they assume you don't need to like. It's not just about getting warm fuzzies, but I think they want to
Mhm.
know that they matter as a human being, that they're adding value. I hear that all the time. That what matters to them, if they have family or any kind of relationship outside of work, that usually matters to them, but a lot of times it suffers because it's not getting the attention and the care that it deserves. What matters to them is having some joy and some fulfillment in their life. And again, I would say if their operating system is outdated, that a lot of times that stuff is also getting neglected. And I would say for a lot of them, what matters is feeling like it goes along with the value, but that they're making some kind of impact, whatever that is. Like those are the things that I hear over and over and over and over and over. And when people are on the struggle bus, one or more of those are not happening. They're not where they want them to be. They're getting neglected. That's what I see. I don't know. What do you see?
Okay. No, no, wait, but this is interesting. Think about what we've just discussed. Outdated inner operating system. The adult and the child basically have the same problems packaged differently. Um, we're so far away from the individual, according to you, the individual defining the business in search of a shared mission. And now you share these 5 things that matter to leaders. This sounds to me like it's pretty serious. So, how are organizations, besides hiring people like us, push us aside, what are they doing to resolve this? Or is it going back to the scenario of that individual who didn't agree with the strategy? She had her moment and she didn't. Do you see the picture I'm trying to paint here?
Yeah.
In fact, why don't you, because you're so good at sound bites, by the way, you're a master. But
I never knew that before, but
well,
okay, here we go.
no, because you have these catchphrases for things. What do we call this?
What do we
What do
call
we
this?
call this? What I just described, what do we call this moment? What is this? Because this is serious stuff.
Yeah.
And the truth is, what we're talking about here is a crisis, something that needs urgent attention.
Yeah.
So what do we call this?
What do we call it? You're putting
Or
me
what do
right
you
on the
want?
spot. Well,
No. You know what it is? It's not. It's look. We're just having a discussion.
yeah.
I mean, for those of you who are either watching or listening, I mean, we're just we're trying to address the issues that you guys are thinking about all the time. So here's not about having the right answer. It's about getting us to a place where people can start connecting with the bigger opportunities, because I don't like looking at these things as problems, but opportunities. But maybe we're not having the right conversations around them because I know people love to give everything a name or a title or a label. But what's happening here
Yeah.
clinically, you think? Let's go. What do you think? What's happening
Well,
here?
I think it's just a whole ecosystem of not understanding or acknowledging, this is what I would say is the messiness of being human. I mean, really. And I think it's almost like what popped in my head all of a sudden is like the Terminator movies, like the Rise of the Machines or whatever. But like
Hmm.
we're not understanding, or we're fighting what it means to be human, period. I think we're fighting what it means to be human in a disruptive world, what it means to be human in a world full of digital transformation. And I think that is really at the crux of it. I mean, why people struggle with change, why they're not speaking up, those types of things. And I think it's going to come to a head at some point. I do agree it's an opportunity. I mean, that's why we both do the work that we do, and I love it. I mean, there's such opportunity to be able to shape. I get really passionate. Like, I want a different future by the time my son is in the workforce more than part-time job. He's 15. But like, there's an opportunity to really just do better and be better. And I think that we've learned so much about human and human behavior and neuroscience and change. And we've learned so much that we didn't know 10 years ago and 20 years ago. Like, use that knowledge to then lean in and it's do the uncomfortable work to get a stronger foundation, get upgrade that inner operating system. But it's not for the timid. I mean, that's the reality.
Rosie, uh, that was good, by the way. And I think most people would agree. No question. Let me repeat what you said, and I've got to follow up. We're fighting being human. So, of course, my follow up is, does that mean that we forgot how to be human? And if we have, then what decision did we make to become?
Yeah. I think that we have
What
forgotten.
what's it? What is okay? Go ahead. Go ahead. What have we forgotten, and what decision have we made to become?
I think we have it to some degree forgotten to be human because let's be honest, like just simplify it. Our world is so filtered that everything gets posted out on social media is like, yay, look at me, yay, awesome. It is people's filtered highlight reel. And but you forget that to get that highlight reel, the behind the scenes footage was messy and full of screw ups and bad lighting and all of those types of things. And so in this world that is increasingly filtered and all this stuff coming at us, and now what's real versus what is AI? My son actually said to me today, you sound more like an AI bot. I'm like, I've never used an AI bot to be me. All my videos are real. I just say the similar things because there we go. But but I think that and then we start demanding because we see this stuff, we start demanding perfection rather than realizing we're imperfect human beings. We start demanding that other people should behave the way we think they should rather than honoring their unique individual. Like we start compartmentalizing and putting boxes and neat things around people because it actually feels safe. The more chaotic our world gets, the more that we can control, compartmentalize, label things. It helps our brain make sense of it. And again, it goes back to feeling safe. And so I think that in many cases we have forgotten. Like I can't tell you this is for real, Glenn. I said this 3 times today already, but so many times per week, I will say to an individual client or a group I'm working with, congratulate yourself on being human. And they will laugh, but they're like, huh, I'm like, because you forgot you're human. You forgot that you're going to screw up. You forgot you're going to have emotions. You forgot that you're going to have days that suck. But they do it all the time. And so when people are like, oh, yeah. And then when I say, like, congratulate yourself on being human, they breathe. You can just see it. They breathe the sigh of relief. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's right. I am. And it's like, you're not superhuman. You're not a robot. You're not an AI chatbot. You're a human being. So give yourself some grace for the fact that you're a human being and humans are messy.
So, what I took from this is that we have made the decision to um, comply to the norms of standardized thinking and societal expectations. That's what I'm gathering from this.
A lot. Yeah.
And so, I mean, Rosie, this is why I'm excited that you're here today, because these are the tough questions that people don't talk enough about. So let's just, again, given what you do, you know right away when you're talking to a client, much like I do. And we know that that's the decision they made. How do you get them out of it? Because let's talk about what's happening in the world. It feels really uncertain for a lot of people. And yet they have become so accustomed to what they've decided that they want to become, which is not who they really are. How do you get them to reclaim what they've lost when what they have is something that they've never really used and we need it?
That's a big question. And I think, my starting point with people is simple as it sounds and maybe elementary as it sounds, is it's literally going back to self-awareness 101. And it's things like, do you know what your core values are and what you actually care about? And walking people through, like, and not you have a list of 5 or 10, like literally, what are the 2 things that matter to you that you use to make decisions that you lean on when times are tough? How do you know you're in alignment? How do you know you're out of alignment? You go back to 1 or 2 simple self-awareness assessments that help them better understand themselves and what makes them tick. You get them back to having a practice of reflecting, of thinking, of looking at themselves, not what this person thinks, whatever, letting them, giving themselves permission to feel. It's all of those basic self-awareness 101 that we have lost sight of because we have such a bias for action that to spend any time reflecting or looking at ourselves, literally, someone was laughing at me this week because I was leading a workshop, and before we do self-awareness work, I put up a disclaimer slide, and it's a picture. It's a snapshot from a Taylor Swift video of her anti-hero where it's like her evil self is behind her, and it's like, here's her, and it's this quote that says, "I'll stare directly at the sun, but never in the mirror." I'm like, we would rather burn our eyes out than have to look at ourselves, because what happens when we look in the mirror? There's a lot of guilt, shame, regret, remorse. I had this happen this morning where someone's like, I can't believe that I've been showing up this way and I feel really bad. And we don't want to deal with those cringy emotions. It can be really uncomfortable to look at ourselves, but it's
Okay, so
necessary.
so yeah, well, and so based on that, this is how I would respond is that if the baseline for growth is zero, most people are at negative 60. And so given that state of mind that people are in, getting from negative 60 to baseline, that's a lot of work. And yet we seem to be rewarding the negative 60 to zero. I mean, there's nothing that we shouldn't reward from the fact of effort in trying to get to baseline. But even getting to baseline is hard because we spent years avoiding what was hard.
Yep.
We've avoided it. So we can't expect people to get to baseline like that. So, how long do you think it would take someone to get from negative 60 to baseline? Here, let me help you. At least 10 years. That's my opinion. What do you think?
I don't think it takes that long. I don't think it takes 10 years because I've worked with leaders that have no freaking clue and are completely lacking in self-awareness. And we're doing deep work and trying to help them with that. And honestly, within 3 to 6 months, they're at a baseline and now we're ready to upgrade. Like I don't think if you create the right space and you put intentionality behind the work, I don't think it takes
Mhm.
10 years. I think it takes around, if you're that negative, it might take 3 to 6 months to get to baseline, and then to really like actually start upgrading the inner operating system and kick it to the back seat. We found in about 8 months is the process that we take people through, and they become a much more evolved person of themselves. And that 10-year-old self, let's say, is in the back seat, and now they're adult, more evolved. We all have work to do. We're works in progress forever, but that more evolved adult self-aware version can now be in the driver's seat.
I will respect you and say good. Um, but I've come to learn that let's just take your example. They may get to baseline, and then before you know it, they're back down to negative 60. But anyway, let's go to the next question. You say that most of us are leading from adaptations instead of authenticity, and we've discussed this, that we confuse achievement with worth. What does it actually mean to reclaim yourself? I mean, let's go deeper here because there's a lot of issues with self-worth these days. How do people reclaim themselves?
I love this question. And I think we reclaim ourselves by, first of all, again, this is going to go back to, we got to get uncomfortable. We got to look in the mirror, but it's really understanding what our value is independent of worth and accomplishments. I'm going to give you a really simple exercise. When we're doing upgrade work, whether you're trying to go from baseline above or you're trying to go negative to baseline, one of the faulty programs that we've identified is actually called the overachiever. And when that one is driving, the people do have a warped sense of their worthiness and value proposition, that it is conditional on their achievements, how much they get done. And so it's that you're always doing more and more. And our workplaces, let's be honest, reward overachieverness. So I was working with a group of executives. We were having them group by which faulty program was their top one. Of course, there was a ton of overachievers, and they're all boasting like, oh, but it's good and how great it is. And I just asked a simple question. I said, how are your relationships at home? Who's getting the crappy leftover version of you? And their faces went, oh crap. Like, how's your well-being? How's your balance? How's your stress? And they're like, oh crap. And so I share that to say that when the tying our worth and hustling for our worth to accomplish more is driving, one of the simplest ways to start to quiet it. You have to believe it. But literally, I give people what I call an interview test. Go around to people at work and in your personal life who know you well and ask them a simple question. You're going to feel like you're fishing for compliments, but it's, what do you value about me?
Mhm.
Period. And they're going to say things like, because you're kind, because you listen, sense of humor, you show up for people. It, someone might say you're a hard worker, but you're going to have 100 answers that say nothing about that. I care about your degrees. I care about that. And what we do with that is say, so that narrative that your worthiness is attached to how much you accomplish is complete crap. You have so much more value. So that's like a baseline starting point to then go, okay, so if I'm a leader and I'm wired to think that I only add value by what I get done, and now I'm inadvertently standing in the way of growing and developing my team or delegating stuff because now I have a fear of I'm going to be quote unquote overhead, or I'm going to be skipped over. Or if I'm not visible, now suddenly my value proposition is at risk. But if I understand that I add value in other ways because I've asked people, now I can start to, I use a pool metaphor. Like you go in the shallow end of the pool and now you can go a little bit deeper in the pool. Shallow end is ask some people what they value about you. Going a little bit
Mm.
deeper is now, okay, well, what if I can find a sense of value and making a difference and making an impact by elevating other people or giving them a project? And do I feel like that diminishes my value, or do they actually get excited? So you start, it's not an overnight thing, but what you do is you just start to find other ways to go, how else could I add value here that isn't me being the one to do it? And if it didn't go horribly, if people don't kick you off the team, if people still value you, that's how you start to reframe it. So that's my long-winded, how do we start to reclaim it, is we have to, in this particular example, we have to start to understand that what people actually value about us and what matters is less about what we do and more about how we show up in
Mm.
relationship to other people. And that starts to kind of plant a seed of doubt in that autopilot programming that maybe I could show up in a different way, or maybe I could approach this in a different way and it won't feel so threatening because there's other ways that I can add value. It's not so myopic and tunnel vision.
So what does it mean? Seriously, I mean, just let's take all of this value that you've given us today, Rosie. What does it mean today to be an overachiever? I really want you to think about that question. Like, what does that mean? We've talked about outdated interoperating systems. We've talked about how we need to reclaim ourselves. I mean, what does it mean to be an overachiever today?
I think, well, what I see when people are an overachiever today, it is they're constantly doing more and more and more and more, and they're trying to feel worthy. They're trying to feel enough. They're trying to prove themselves to somebody else. They're trying to prove themselves. I think overachiever today is like, it is an interesting one because it's almost become a baseline expectation at organizations, right? Like take that client, like
Yeah.
half of them were, they're, yeah, yeah, yeah. And they wear it with a badge of honor. And what I say is that's a badge of armor. It's a badge of self-protection. And it is this idea that if I pack my schedule, it's a way of over functioning. Then if I'm so much in a human doing mode and go, go, go all the time, I don't have to deal with the human being, which has emotions, which has fears, which
Okay.
has doubt.
Okay. So, given what you just said, are overachievers, can we really rely on them for solving for the right opportunities?
No, really quick. But no, because here's the thing. If I'm in overachiever mode, first of all, I'm so at capacity that that I would have any brain space to think creatively or clearly. Like I actually don't because I'm so jam-packed with my to-dos and calendar that I don't. You have to have space and time to reflect if you're going to solve big messy problems. Period. You cannot do that if you're overachieving. The other thing is if I'm overachieving,
Go
it's
ahead.
overcompensating for me feeling less than. So it's just no. Like there's my no. You can't.
So as we wrap this up, you and I could talk
I
for
know.
hours, by the way. And I really, really do appreciate your time today. And Um, I mean, you're quick-witted and you're very much in tune to what's going on, which I think people are really enjoying about you. I mean, you're just very real.
I'm not an AI bot like my son thinks I am. I'm telling you.
No, no,
No.
no, you're not that. You're not that.
Uh,
So what, given the discussion, what type of individual should organizations be looking for when they're trying to change or transform their organizations? Because based upon the things we've been talking about, which I think is a large percentage of people in the workplace, I would conclude, based on this discussion, that we don't have enough people in our organizations that can really add value to the transformation process. What type of people could? I mean,
yeah.
and I know I'm asking you some really
No, I love it. No, I
difficult.
love it. And
No, no, no.
yeah,
And the reason I bring this up is, and as I've learned just from clients and people that, today a bot, an AI bot, is reviewing one's resume. And hopefully it gets to someone who actually is capable and has a modern inner operating system to evaluate it properly so that they can pitch the talent or the potential candidate to an employer.
yeah,
You see where I'm going
yeah,
here, right?
yeah.
So because we're already now talking about, well, if this is happening inside the organization, and we have outdated interoperating systems outside of it that are actually helping us provide the counsel for what we should be doing before it even gets into the organization, including, I'm not even going to mention because this is not intended to be anything negative. It's to say that the value chain seems full of individuals that might not be the most capable. Not that they don't have competence, but they may not be the most capable given this moment in time.
Yeah.
So who are the ones that can?
I think there's two parts to that. One is who can are people who've done deep inner work, who are have an insatiable curiosity and willingness. I'm going to use Adam Grant's language to unlearn and relearn. Like if you start to look at the skills that are needed, this learning agility and true adaptability by being willing to be wrong, rethink, be curious, that is critical, which means that like we're going to keep working on ourselves. So I think people who have that curiosity, the willing to get uncomfortable, the willing to work on themselves, the willing to be wrong, the learning agility, all of those things I think are critical. I also have seen, because we've been a part of it, you can do really large scale transformational work within organizations when you have a collective group of leaders that are doing that messy inner work. It can't be, oh, we're going to send one or two executives. But when you say we are going to make a commitment as an organization that we are going to level up our leaders' ability to show up more courageously, to show up more self-aware, to show up more human-centric, that means that we've got to do a lot of collective work at once. It's like doing a hard reboot of your like, and so you could go like, is it a buy or build strategy to use like the HR, talent world? You can look for people who already have some of that tendency, skill, have done that work, but you're not going to get that far. I mean, there are people out there who are amazing who have done that, but if you start to look at, really, we're talking about organizational transformation, it means a collective mindset transformation and shared language and shared tools and shared skill sets amongst the leaders. And when you start to do that work, you're also going to find out quickly which leaders are willing to do it and aren't, and which are going to cut it or not. And if you have leaders in there that will not do it, then fine, you replace here and there. But when you start to support them all in doing that work, that's where you have your bench strength increase. I think that's the opportunity.
So what percentage of an organization has to be bought in and fully willing to do that work for it all to work? Is it 50%, 60, 70? What percentage? Because you know how this goes. Not everybody buys it.
Right.
I mean, so what percentage do you think is required uh, so that what comes out of this creates the change or transformation that an organization would need?
What always comes to mind with that is I think about the bell-shaped curve, and there's going back from the 1970s, the law of diffusion of innovation, which is how does any change, product, idea get adopted across the population. So if you think about that bell-shaped curve, a lot of times we focus on just the front end of like those innovators, and you're like, hey, we're going to do all this, but you only get about a 10% adoption rate. And that's not a critical tipping point. You've got to get over into the early majority and the late majority. And so I think, depending on, I think once I saw Simon Sinek talk about this, and like a critical tipping point was like, you got to get like 15%, and then you start to build momentum and stuff from there. So it's like, it doesn't all happen at once. It's how does it spread? So it's like, you've got to find the people who believe in this and want to do it and have some accountability. And then you start to see changes, and then you start to say, hey, and then other people are like, how do I want this? We actually did this with an organization inadvertently. It was like part of my previous book of, there was a team that was struggling, and we helped them shift their mindset and equip them with skills to like be better, and the culture of their team like did a complete 180. And then what happened? It created demand. Another team was like, how did you do that? We want that for our team. We want that for our team. And it's like grassroots organizing. So I think so often we take this top down push stuff rather than how do we actually create demand and make it desirable. And so anyway, that's my long-winded way of, I think you have to look at that idea that we've known forever of how does change happen across the population, and how do you start to have visible momentum where you start to kind of slowly bring more people along. And then you're always going to have people at the tail that don't get it, that don't come along. Don't give them energy. And if they're staying and hating, then you have a choice if you're going to keep them or not.
Rosie, I can't thank you enough for this discussion. So timely and very much appreciated. Any closing comment before we wrap it up?
This has just been so fun. I could talk to you for hours. So I appreciate the tough questions and the digging in. And this has been absolutely delightful. I'll geek out with you anytime.
Well, the feelings are mutual. Rosie, thanks a ton. Let's stay in touch. Continue to do great work. And as we close with every show, when you begin to earn conviction, you will be able to see things that others don't, do what others won't, and keep pushing when prudence says quit. Thank you so much, Rosie. I look forward to continuing our relationship.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Personalization Outbreak. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss a show. If you enjoyed the content, visit ageofpersonalization.com to check out our free streaming video series and learn how to get involved in the movement. I'm Glenn Llopis. I wish you a good day, and remember, without strategy, change is merely substitution, not evolution.